time to get your fix. Come on down, get your horrible gaming review. 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 Wow.
Hello, my name is Zachariah with Old Man Gaming, and this is another horrible game review. As usual, before we get started, a few disclaimers. Number one, the word horrible in the title of this video does not necessarily refer to the game or DLC I am reviewing, but much more the content itself. We do snap judgment reviews here on the channel, meaning I get 5 to 10 hours with the game before I put this up and put this together. I also believe video games are one of the most subjective forms of art. So all of that combined means I don't give scored reviews on this station. Instead, I will tell you what the game is as an overview. Then I'll give you the pros and the cons of the game in my point of view, as all reviews are. And then I'll tell you whether I personally will be sticking with this game outside the purposes of this video. A final disclaimer, as you can tell, my voice is still gone. I am on medication for it. Hopefully it gets better. So let's dive right in. What am I reviewing today? Gunfire Reborn has just dropped onto Game Pass. So it is a roguelite first-person shooter with some kind of weird cell shading, some weird kind of almost chibi animals taking on all sorts of monsters. It's very interesting, very weird, very foreign. So did I like it? Did I not like it? Well, first, let's talk about what it is. Like I said, chibi animals, cell shading, kind of Borderlands-y roguelite. What you will do is you jump in as one of 6 characters, I believe, 6 or 7. Then you jump into this game, and then it procedurally generates in certain areas, one after the other, which round out in a series of levels. So there'll be, I think there's like 4 or 5 levels per big area before you hit a big boss that you have to fight, take out, drop to get to the next area where you do the same. Progressively, the whole thing gets harder. With that said, as you go along, you'll be opening chests, collecting weapons, and generally trying to make yourself better by building yourself out in the moment, like all roguelikes. You will be buying little abilities, little other tokens, stuff like that, and seeing these for the first time, getting these for the first time through achievements in game. So like certain weapons are only unlocked once you kill 50 of a certain type of weapon, a certain type of enemy. Other weapons are only unlocked when you find a certain type of thing, stuff like that. As you collect weapons, of course, there's also a peddler, which allows you to buy certain items, health ups, that sort of thing. And then there is a craftsman that allows you to upgrade your weapons to deal more damage and give you more statistics. With all roguelites, the idea of it is to get as far as you can before you die, then use your collected resources from the run to slowly build yourself up so that you can get deeper and deeper. As you fight through a mission, you will collect 2 major resources. That is gold, which can only be used in the run itself with the peddler and the craftsman. And then you also collect soul essence, which can be used in between the missions to upgrade your overall statistics, your overall ability to deal damage, to find things, powers, all of that. What's interesting here is the characters, with the exception of one, they're all locked. You're saying, oh, paywall. They're not locked behind a paywall, but they are locked behind some kind of ridiculous grinding. There are 3 or 4 of them that are locked just behind leveling up your character. Now, one thing about your character statistics that you level up between missions, they translate for the entirety of all your characters. So whoever you're playing gets the bonuses from all of your leveling so far. This is an aspect I really liked. And this means that if I want to try a new character, I'm not starting from scratch. And I guess I'm getting ahead of myself in the pros, but you don't start from scratch. You start with your overall abilities. It's just applied to the character, which plays fundamentally different. Some of them will unlock at 25, 50, so on and so forth. The other 2 are unlocked behind soul essences expenditures. In other words, you have to say, no, I'm not going to level up my overall character, and instead buy one of these characters and save up my essence to get them. And hey-oh, that's the game. That's the game in a nutshell. So let's find out what I liked and didn't like about this. Well, I kind of showed my hand a little bit on the pros. One thing I do like is that the leveling up you do with one character applies to all the characters. All the leveling up statistics and build stuff in between applies to every character you have out there. So you don't have to worry about switching characters up. It applies to everything. So when you collect that new character via leveling, all the things you've done so far applied to that one. I thought this was really nice and really cool, and it does slightly offset my biggest con of the game, which we'll get to later. My next pro is the gameplay. Absolutely phenomenal gameplay in combat. I've got to say, I think this hands down as far as a frenetic first-person shooter is concerned, I think this beats a lot of them. It finds this really interesting common middle ground between the tankiness of Borderlands and the frenetic, skill-based play of like a Doom or that Warhammer one, the Necrocopolis or whatever. It's right in between there where you actually feel like you can get better at the gunfights as well as the other fights with your abilities and whatnot without being so fast that you don't know what's going on half the time. I absolutely love the fluidity of the gameplay. I think it is second to none, and if there's nothing else that kept me in this game as long as it did was the fact that the gunplay itself is just so smooth. Which brings me to my next pro. And that is the weapon typing and variation. The weapons are great in this game. Absolutely great. There are tons of different weapon types. There's 3 overall ammo types that you have to pick up. And each weapon kind of feeds off those ammo types, which makes an interesting kind of build representation too. Because you don't necessarily want 2 weapons feeding off the same ammo. That being said, even within those, there's so many variations that every time you pick up a gun, it fires kind of in its own way. It shoots in its own way. It does its own thing. I really felt the differences here, even with stuff that seemed carbon copies with just a different kind of skill set, such as the thrown blades. I actually encountered 2 different thrown blade weapons. One was the Prism, which was fire-based. The other one I can't remember the name of. It was corrosive-based. But even in that was interesting, whereas the Prism would hit something and kind of explode in this burst of fire and fireworks, whereas the corrosive one would bounce around the level for a really long time and not necessarily explode. I thought that in itself was interesting. Every gun or weapon in this game plays completely different and feels completely different, which makes it really interesting when you have that gun or weapon that you really love and you find it. It's just great. It's like, yes, this is the one. And because of the craftsman, you can just keep upgrading them. You're never going to hit anything in this game where like, oh, the gun's out of level, I can't use it anymore, or something like that. Really enjoyed that part of it. All right, let's get into the cons. What didn't I like about this? Number 1, every other character is locked behind some feat or achievement or accomplishment or money expenditure, not out of pocket, but in-game currency. I hate that, man. I hate going in and only having one selection of character when you have 8. Couldn't we have made a couple of these characters kind of open to whoever plays? Especially since I did play enough to unlock at least one other character, and while she plays completely different than the original character, I didn't find her necessarily better than the original character. So it's not like you're building up to something by unlocking new characters. You can easily play the original character to victory if that's the play style. So why are all these characters locked behind stuff? Especially since there's no in-game, like there's no way to purchase them. So like if there's no way to purchase them, you're not even getting money off them. Is this really worth earning? I'm already earning points to level up my character. Why am I then also having to level up to get new characters, to get different play styles? I think that's ridiculous. These characters should be unlocked right off the bat so that you can play whatever you want. And that way, when you do go in with your friends, which this is very heavily geared to 4-player co-op, you're not all playing the same starter character right off the bat, which is super annoying. My next con has got to be the translation here. Obviously, Gunfire Reborn is a foreign game. I believe it's Korean. I'm not 100% positive where the developer is from. And usually this is not a problem. They make great games. But the translation from one to another is a nightmare. There are many different parts of the game, such as these in-game sacrifice chests that have huge parts of the text just in Korean or Japanese kanji, some type of kanji that you can't read. Then the craftsman only speaks in like German. He doesn't actually speak in English. So you have to just kind of guess, which thankfully the pictures and the way the game is put together, you can very easily figure out through common sense what you're supposed to be doing with him, but still, like, the informational box that pops up is in German. The translation here is a nightmare. They really need to go over this to localize it a little bit to English-speaking nations, especially if you're playing in it. It's just super frustrating. My final con is lack of area variation. So, one thing that's awesome about a lot of roguelites nowadays, the best roguelites nowadays, is not only do you have these areas that are procedurally generated with different enemies and bosses, you also have the possibility that you get different areas each time. It's not necessarily locked, like the third one isn't always going to be this, the fourth one isn't always going to be this. Hades was always locked, but it switched it up by you never knew which boss you were going to be fighting at the end, and each area had like 4 or 5 bosses that it could rotate to. With this game, the area is locked, the boss is basically locked, with the exception of one rotating boss called the Golem. This is kind of annoying. It gets really, really, really repetitive really fast because of this. And in a game when it's all about run-based and getting that run, I wish there was a way to kind of like switch up something more about each one of these areas. Whether it be the boss, whether it be the actual area types themselves, something. Because it feels very stagnant after your 6th or 7th run when it comes to what you're taking on. I mean, the room typing is always different, which is nice, and you're not always sure what kind of enemy you're going to get within that area, but you've already met like the 4 or 5 enemies specific to that area, so after run 4 or 5, you know what you're getting into. That's a little frustrating, and it defeats that like repeated run sort of mentality that you want out of a game like this. Alright, that's it. Gunfire Reborn. That's my review. Just dropped in the Game Pass within a week, I believe. I know I had said I was going to do Judonia this week, but when a big name like that drops, you got to kind of review it when you have the chance. Next week, I'm probably going to do Judonia, so check out that. That'll be an independent one, so probably not as many of you will be as interested in it. But nonetheless, you guys can also contact me on Discord. You can contact me on Facebook at Old Man Gaming DH. You can contact me on Twitter at Old Man Gaming 9. The Discord link is in the description below. Join it, influence this. I do requests for reviews as long as I can get them for free. The games, that is. And yeah, of course, if you think I'm wrong, tell me in the comments below. And either way, as long as you keep watching and listening, I'll keep making them. I'll see you guys next time.